Hello, Internet. It is time for another Wednesday's serial because I can't seem to figure out what the hell I'm doing. This time I'm going to go through some quick weekly reviews. I'm going to show you some trades that I just got because I'm like showing off, I guess. And then I kind of want to do a vlog editorial thing. So, bottoms up. Alright, so I got like no independent comics this week because I don't know. So I'm just going to go through it. Amazing Spider-Man Learning to Crawl 1.1. This is touching back to Spider-Man's origin. It's not retelling, Amazing Fantasy 15, but it picks up immediately thereafter, technically before the original Amazing Spider-Man 1 would have taken place, I guess. And it has some interesting stuff, but it's going back to Peter in high school, and it just feels so regressive, and it's not like reading the new stuff. And this is going back and trying to be kind of a Stan Lee Ditko Spider-Man with some more modern sensibility. And it's interesting. I don't know if I care that much, though, because I like Peter Parker as an adult. So, yeah. This was interesting. There was one of those first issues for free, but then the digital, they're trying to push you to more digital stuff. Amazing Spider-Man, Who Am I? 'Twas written by Joshua Hale Fialkov of iVampire fame, and obviously did a little bit more. And then Joanne Babillo is the main artist. I can't really fault the colorist or the inker. It's clear that, look how spread out that is. That's ridiculous. That's probably the script not having enough to go on. I'm going to get to that to a minute, but just I'm trying to find a page that are 2 pages without an ad, and there basically aren't any. Oh, here we go. It's thin. The art is abysmal. There's levels of details in comics, and some are less to have more action or whatnot, or have you focus on certain things. This is just not there. This is not professional work. And the script by Fialkov is bad. There's the general premise, and this isn't spoiling anything. You flip to page 1 and there you are. Spider-Man doesn't know who he is. It's not introducing you to the Amazing Spider-Man since Peter Parker's back, and they think some people need that. No, this is apparently something happened, something with his memory, and he thinks he's a bank robber because he's just in that situation. It's really weird. Maybe they'll go and explain it later. I don't know. This is obviously trying to start you off in the action to hook you, and dear Lord, this is the guy who did iVampire. Like, I wasn't that big of a fan of iVampire, and I thought people are seeing stuff I wasn't. Now I'm wondering if something was going on with editorial on that book, pulling some scripts together, and there was some dead weight, and that's what was holding that book back. So, I don't know. Deadpool versus Carnage number 3. This was really just a lot of action, a lot of fighting, a lot of fun kind of quip stuff. But there's a couple interesting moments. The first one I can't really talk to because it's the very last page. Spoilers, whatever. The more interesting part about this book, though, and this kind of unfolds throughout it, and I'm not spoiling it by saying it, but is how they reveal Deadpool realizing that, yeah, he's crazy, but he's not as psychotic or as dark as Carnage. And that's kind of an interesting character position stuff that they're doing here. And yeah, it's mostly just action, boom, 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 but that's interesting character beat, and I really liked it amidst all the weird, bizarre, dark humor stuff. So there you go. And then the last Marvel I want to talk about is Cyclops number 1. This was good. This was not great. It was fun, and it was really interesting to see how Cyclops is kind of interacting with his father and the whole space pirate thing. And it's fun to actually have a crazy sci-fi story like that. At $3.99, I don't feel like there is enough in these pages to warrant me picking this up month to month. But this is not like a I'll pick it up in trade. But no, I want to get this in trade. I just need to get it in trade to get enough of it at a time to keep my interest and to keep the price down a little bit, because this is not a premium book. I think it is a good book. I think it's going to be marred by this pricing standard that's coming in, and at a number 1, I love Cyclops, so I'm really predispositioned to like this. A lot of people who kind of hate Cyclops or are looking for a reason to like him aren't necessarily going to find it here, because this is a good comic, and it kind of sets up, but it kind of leaves a lot of questions, like why is he in space all of a sudden? Why is him and his father having such a weird time connecting? You think it'd be a little more natural? I don't know. And I mean, I'm sure some of that will come with later issues. It's just, to hook you in, this wasn't the best first issue, especially for a character that doesn't really have the development that, like, say, a Wolverine, who's gonna die in a few months, so who knows, or a Spider-Man, you know. I mean, this is Cyclops. Cyclops on his own has been few and far between. So then DC kind of has a theme of me this week trying to defend, because there's a lot of negativity around it. So, first and foremost, Batman Eternal number 5. This was James Tynion's first kind of like heading the issue, and I enjoyed it. I understand why people didn't like this as much as the first 4, because I don't think it's as good as the first 4, because those were pretty phenomenal, and this is really pretty freaking good and carrying on and doing stuff. But this is also the first issue that really got away from Batman pretty much the entire issue, and we're seeing a lot of these side characters come together, and we're seeing it relates but a different tangent of the case, and we're getting connections. We're seeing more how Red Robin actually plays in the New 52, and he's kind of developing a relationship with Harper. Not like a relationship romantically, but I mean they have kind of a bit of an adventure together in here, and that's kind of interesting to see the kind of two tech geeks interacting, and how they're not getting along perfectly at first, but it's not that like, I hate you and then we'll overcome our differences. Like, they're dealing with the situation, but there's tension. And oh man, it's interesting to see that this issue is willing to keep things moving but not speed up the pace. And I think if people are coming down on this issue, I think they're a little crazy, because this is good comics. So there you go. Then Green Arrow 31, Outsiders War. This is pretty much the end of the Outsiders War. Interesting stuff. I feel like this moved too fast and was trying to establish too much now that we're kind of here. The Arrow kind of became a MacGuffin. And I'm curious to see where this is going, and I'm still enjoying this book, but I'm hoping that some elements that were introduced in this Outsiders War immediately plays forward with Green Arrow, because otherwise we spent a lot of time quickly establishing a whole layer of the DC universe for it to be an aside. No, I imagine this has to be a setup for Green Arrow mythos going forward. And actually, after this, I'd be really excited to see a Green Arrow and Outsiders book, or something along those lines. So Future's End is something I had to walk into and really try to keep an open mind. I actually didn't pick up the Free Comic Book Day issue, and I want to. So I don't know what was going on there. I heard from interpretation there's a lot of like dying, and it's a Terminator thing. I don't know if it's a preview or an actual like first issue, if you will, but this actual first issue really just kind of establishes a cast that we're going to be dealing with, and it really is spanning the Wildstorm side of the DCU, because you have Grifter, a la the cover, you get the Stormwatch, which is really the Authority characters coming in. That includes like Hawkman in this case, and then there's like going to be Firestorm, and it seems like a lot of B-list DC. And then you also have the Batman Beyond component, which I'm not sold on this yet, but I think I'm going to pick it up again next week because I'm curious to see where it's going, as I think this is more of what I wanted from certain characters and certain bits of the DCU. But I want to read to you something that I found online, because there's a lot of vitriol towards the Free Comic Book Day comic, and I don't necessarily see why, as this is, from what I understand, supposed to be pretty clearly like a DC Universe Terminator kind of story, so dealing with the past and then seeing a lot of death and then trying to avoid it by going back to the past to avert a huge catastrophe. So yeah, there's going to be some death. Maybe there's something I missed, but here's what I read. This is from Dania Abel. What's good for sales is not good for comics. Reviewing DC's Future End from Free Comic Book Day. In it, apparently there was this. It's fucking making them tons of money, but taking away the heart of DC. The inspiration, the heroism, the part of the universe that hooked me as a child and kept me reading my entire life. The target audience is the teenage, young, adult male audience who loves gore, mutilation, and murder. God. And the same audience somehow thinks it's okay to send rape threats to someone who criticized a fucking comic book cover for being shitty. They're actively targeting the audience who are acting like total fucking assholes, and it's selling. That's the worst part. It's selling, and all it costs them is their soul. Really? I mean, okay, maybe it's a bad comic, and maybe it's going to turn out to be a bad comic. But going back into the past to avoid a terrible future where there's murder and mayhem and whatnot sounds like Days of Future Past. Sounds like, I don't know how many like sci-fi stories and or comic book stories. I mean, that's like half of X-Men history. I know X-Men's Marvel, obviously, but what? DC's done a lot of stuff, and I'm not going to say it's worse or anything, but I mean, you need the villain for the hero to rise up. I mean, I'm kind of getting tired of the social moralism of people looking at these comics and expecting funny books, and then complaining about the fact that there's horrible crimes that our crime fighters are trying to stop. It seems bizarre to me. So, yeah. Oh, I also picked up The Wake. Boom. And I just want to show you something I got from In Stock Trades real quick. I got this, The Meta Barons, which some people have been trying to talk me into reading. I'm looking forward to it. It's supposedly a script that was adapted from Dune that took some liberties, and it should be interesting to read it, as this is a different thing. This is a really this is a big one, and I'm looking forward to something way off the beaten path. And then I got me some Matt Wagner Batman. So Batman Faces is something he did for Tales of the Dark Knight. That seems to be his lesser known one. And then Monster Men and Mad Monk. Once I finish these, I'm going to be able to do a video I promised a while ago where some people recommended to me some Batman stories. And I've read all of them, except for these, obviously, as I just got them minutes ago. And I'm looking forward to doing that and talking about some different Batman, because I've really been trying to dig into this character. I've never really done, and it's half of DC Comics. And the other bit is I just finished my collection of the Grant Morrison run of Batman with these two trades, and I have most of it in issues. I'm going to go through and read that run. I know it's not every Grant Morrison Batman comic, because he's done some other stuff. But there's that run starting with Batman and Son, and then ending with the death of Damian. And I kind of want to read through that and kind of try to interpret and deal with that. And I've read a couple different articles, and I'm going to approach it as something different. So that should be interesting for me. And sorry, I want to finish off because I kind of started this with that quote and come back to it. The social moralizing I've been seeing, there's a lot of it right now surrounding with feminism, talking about women in comics, and it's fine. I understand. People want to see more women in comics. Great. What's bothering me is there's stuff like that, or it's the crimes are too violent, or this is inappropriate, or this is just gore, violence porn, or you shouldn't depict rape ever. I want to start there, actually. You should not depict rape ever is logically akin to saying you shouldn't show drugs ever, and then you can't talk about why it's bad. And a while ago, some of you might remember in Kick-Ass 3 there was rape, and people were upset at the way it was depicted, which I mean, it was there and it was really uncomfortable, but duh. And I get it, and if you don't read those stories, I totally understand. That makes total sense to me. But to say it shouldn't be there because they're demonizing the villain and showing how bad they are, especially in this very morally gray story, I think is kind of stupid, frankly. It's the villain and the bad guy doing it. Yeah, they're making you want to hate him. It's not great writing. It's not good writing, no. But to say that they can't is where I have a problem, because that's akin to saying you can't show drugs. And that's what that Amazing Spider-Man issue way back when fought when they were showing the evils of drugs. Now, that was a much better written story and actually did something and said something. And I think to say you can't do rape is to say that there could be actually very well written stories somewhere waiting to happen that's going to address it in a way like that. And if you just say, well, you can't because they brought it up, that's censorship, plain and simple. Unless you're going to take the hard line, well, it's not governmentally instituted. You guys know what I mean. Yeah. But to wind up from that, I mean, there's just the social moralizing of these comics are too violent or whatnot. And again, I mean, if you're feeling that way, pick up the ones you want to. You're already doing that anyways, right? But a lot of these comics, are not intended for kids anymore. And yes, do we need more comics intended for kids? Sure. Should we have more comics that are deviated for different age groups? Yeah, sure. Totally. And maybe a looser, lighter, not rating standard, just kind of like a loose guidelines so that people can buy to a certain comfort level, putting on there, just putting that ahead of time, because some people have trigger warnings and, things that are going to set them off, and kind of a loose idea of, this comic's going to get dark and gritty and talk about things. If you're not comfortable with that stuff, don't get it. And not trying to spoil anything, if you're going to look at it that way, but I mean, just kind of this is an adult-themed comic, which is kind of what the Max Line stuff was supposed to be doing, and now it's just in comics randomly, and I understand that level of deviation. I think that's fair, but I think to be saying that you can't be doing it is crazy. To saying that, a futuristic story where it's a post-apocalyptic thing, there's lots of death, and you're complaining about them depicting a lot of death seems stupid to me. And then to the feminism thing, I think it's a lot of the same thing. Yeah, we should want more women in comics, and this is actually very different now that I realize, and that came out of my mouth. I'm all for more women in comics, more good characters and all that, but I think that's the problem, is we're not looking at, we need to write more good characters, and then the minorities and the women and the different racial depictions and whatnot will come with good writing. We look at it as we need to depict this and that. The problem is that never lasts. And we've seen a lot of stuff with comics trying to push new characters. We've all seen it on different levels, and it doesn't work too well. We're talking about an industry that relies on characters created in, what, the 40s and 60s for the most part? I mean, DC lives off of Batman, and yeah, he's a white male. So are a lot of other characters, and they can barely make them sell. It's not a race thing, it's a matter of the characters that are established, yeah, were established in time where, yeah, they were white and male. And yeah, that's not great, but there needs to be something. And you know what Miles Morales is pushing for, and a lot of people are picking up on that, and that's kind of a subversion way to deal with the Spider-Man thing and get that in there, and that's great. But to say that we need more women comics and trying to push that, and then a lot of comics with females come out, and yeah, not mostly from the big two, but there's other publishers and there's other comics coming out. What we need is less people saying what needs to happen and looking to see when it has happened or if it is happening and trying to uplift the good ones. We need people who are not championing a social cause and saying, gosh darn it, you need to do this. Instead, trying to look at it as a problem, say, like, why aren't more comics with women selling? I mean, like, that Wonder Woman comic sure is great right now. Why aren't more people picking it up? I know a fair amount of people are picking it up, and almost everyone who does likes it. Why not more? Why don't we champion that? Why don't we look at the positive and try to say, yeah, this is a problem, but right now we got this going on. More of this, because that's all fans can do. All fans can do is look at pre-existing models of stuff, figure out whether they like it or not. If they like it, become a fan of it, and say, I want more. That's really basically all you can do on a simple level of being a fan. That's it. I mean, unless you're going to get into, like, fan creation stuff, but then you're only doing fan fiction, and then that pretty much leaves you to be derivative only. You gotta... It's not that I disagree with these problems, it's the way that people are approaching them, and it's just... Don't try to find the problems that have existed since before you were born. Yes, this problem has existed since before you were born. It's a problem, great. It's not really, I mean, try to find where maybe the cracks are, because if it's a problem that's existed for over 10 minutes, something somewhere's happened, especially if it's fictional, There's other pieces of fiction, and don't blame DC or Marvel for not having the number one comic be El Señorita Diablo. It's not going to happen. And because most people don't care about El Señorita Diablo, because she's a one-dimensional character with 3D boobs, no one's going to care. So, I don't know, guys. I've seen so much just hate on Twitter for people trying to do the right thing, and it's all just negativity, man. Just try to read some comics. Oh, and in my quest of Batmaning, I finished through Hush recently. I'm sure a lot of you know the next big community project coming up is Hush. I get to do the first issue. Cool. So that should be interesting. I'm curious to see what people think about the ending now that I've reread it and it's a lot fresher in my mind. When that's all said and done, I might be doing a video about the ending myself. I doubt I'm going to be able to make it to the Hangout because that's during Denver Comic Con, and I don't know if I'm going to have an internet connection. I'm sure I won't have anything better to do, though. Alright. Cheers.